Well, my name's Erin Rhoades. I'm super excited to share my summer with everybody. So thanks for coming. So I will start with my presentation. First couple of things on here, just a couple of snapshots from the Unidata website. The first is just the blog post welcoming us, my own blog post, and then my staff bio page. I can't juggle and I've never touched a chainsaw, so that made that part extra funny to me. And it was just a fun way to make me feel welcome, so I appreciate that a lot. So I did a ton of different things this summer. So I kind of made a graphic just to overview that. I'll go through an overview and then I'll just focus on a couple things. So my first thing, how I got here, I'm a fourth year MSU Denver meteorology student. I've had a little bit of experience with Unidata products in the past. I used IDV every week in a lab last semester. And then I've used Awebb's Cave pretty intermittently throughout my program. I got into Python because of my neighbor. In late 2022, she just told me to take a Python class. So I took that recommendation to heart and I took a basic 1-credit Python class. And I ended up really enjoying the concept of Python as a whole. So I wanted to learn more about it. So I attended the AMS conference in January. I went to the MetPy workshop where I learned about this internship. I applied and then I was accepted. Yay. And then fast forward a little bit. So now that I'm actually here, decided on my goals for the summer. I mainly wanted to solidify my own fundamental Python skills since my real main experience was just a 1-credit class. And I wanted to do that in a way that helped others, so benefit people more than just myself. And through exploration and talking with Drew a lot, we determined tutorials were mainly going to be the best route of that. So before I can create any tutorial, I should probably make sure I actually know what I'm doing. So I started going through the Project Pythia Foundation site. I worked through all the basic notebooks there. And they were just kind of an overview of Python and all the scientific packages, which thankfully those were pretty straightforward. And the biggest fundamental thing I wanted to focus on was environments. My 1-credit Python class didn't do much of that just because time constraints. So I was essentially just handed an environment, handed a notebook, and told to work on it. So Drew spent a lot of time with me going over environment management and essentially environment 101. I initially thought I needed to create one super environment that could do literally everything, which we all know that's not true. So I essentially just dumped my current install of Conda and we started fresh with using Mamba. So now I have a bunch of different environments. I know how to make them and everything's a lot faster because of using Mamba. And then my first kind of tutorial thing I did was making just a little blurb about API documentation. I noticed during my 1-credit Python class that documentation was just a very scary concept to everybody, myself included. If you're not experienced in programming, API documentation just looks really scary. So I thought if I could make something that explains it a little more, then that would help others maybe make documentation a bit more accessible to them and be less afraid of it. And this obviously doesn't explain everything, but I thought by just pointing out a few key points that could help someone dissect different types of documentation a lot easier. So next was the users workshop, which that was such a great workshop. I learned a ton of stuff. I love the concept of the take-home project. So I'm already looking forward to the next one of those. So I really enjoyed the opportunity to get to attend that. And then this is a group shot of the in-person attendees of this. I wanted to include a very nice picture. And it was an eventful summer, so it was already time for another event. Through my working through the Project Pythia Foundations material, I fell in love with the concept of that project and the cookbooks that they produce. Essentially what a cookbook is it's a recipe of how to do a specific code notebook versus just here's an example, copy paste it, hopefully it works. And I also thought this concept really embodied what I wanted to do this summer of solidifying my own Python skills and creating something that could help people. So during this cookbook cook-off was what the event was called. I made kind of a mini cookbook over just opening remote data with Xarray in the full cookbook format. Used a few different Python packages throughout it. And then it was my first time using Visual Studio Code and really any part of GitHub other than creating an account. So that was a lot of really good fundamental information for myself. And then this is my notebook I made. I'll just kind of go through this fairly quickly. But the cookbooks are all kind of formatted the same way. They have like a prerequisite section. So if there's anything required or helpful to know before starting this code, you can check out that. And those link to the Project Pythia foundations. You go over your imports, and then I made a little graphic going over how just to do how to get a link for opening remote data. I just used the reanalysis data as an example. So that steps through that. And then I formatted it just with doing just from a link opening a data set. And then I tried to expand on it so people could use it for more than one purpose. And my goal with kind of formatting it this way was to give people a foundation of how to open a remote data set and then be able to apply this to a bunch of different other data sets and do it a couple different ways. So once the data set's opened, you can create a blank. I started with a blank map and then a finished map. Another concept with this one was I wanted to give people like a blank map to start with, so a good foundation that they could apply to other things later on. And then throughout it, I linked different documentations and just useful resources so they can continue to grow from this tutorial. And then at the end of it, it lists several different other resources as well. And then that's another group picture of the in-person attendees of this event. We have such good backgrounds here in Colorado. So now that I have my kind of basics, I understand what a cookbook is. I understand how to make one. I wanted to tackle a full cookbook versus just the mini one with kind of one notebook. And I wanted to use MetPy because of my meteorology degree. This was one of my primary interests. So with this, I ended up doing like a SKUT cookbook tutorial. So I have a full tutorial of kind of like a similar format to that one I previously showed. And then it has just example workflows. So the workflows they're a little less like in depth. They're more kind of code snippets, but it's pretty easy to understand where the changes come and how to do those if you follow the initial tutorial. And the reason I chose SKUT cookbooks initially was I wanted to do something that kind of encompasses MetPy's main purposes. So read, write meteorological data, create meteorological quantities with well-documented equations, and create quality plots of data. So I can do that with a lot of the SKUT examples that already exist. So I updated those, made sure everything matched and was a similar format. So it was really easy to recreate for the person who was going to go through this cookbook. And then that again just built on the skills of Visual Studio Code and GitHub. And then this one's not quite a notebook. It's more, this is in the Pythia website. It's a little bit under construction because it's part of the MetPy cookbook, so it's not full formatted, but it has kind of the different notebooks on the side. And then this was kind of the full tutorial one I made, which steps through really every part, explains it pretty in depth. I have a few links throughout it to different documentations, and then making a sounding plot. I start with just making a basic one, and then I talk about just each kind of individual chunk, what that means, links to documentation, and how you can change it and customize it. I have different links to like colorblind efficiency resources, things like that. And then I expand on the plot to see how you can make it a little prettier. So like the wind barbs over here are less crowded. And then on this one, all the lines are extended throughout the entire sounding. So I wanted to also just show off some different fun things you could do with it and really customize these to however you want. And then I won't go through all of these, but these are just the example workflows. I spent a lot of time making sure all of these were formatted the exact same way, so everything matched. So it was really easy to go through all of these, and they all made sense. So everything in this code is the same order. I point out what's added, things like that. So that was kind of my biggest project I worked on over the summer, and definitely I learned so much on this. I was happy to be able to do this over the summer. And then my last couple things, I worked on this mainly while Drew was at SciPy. I worked on this with Shay. I wanted to look a little bit into Python AWIPs and kind of explore the development side of Python. So before starting this, I did the Unidata e-learning modules, the Learn AWIPs Cave and Learn Python AWIPs, just to solidify my fundamental knowledge of AWIPs. And the goal with this was to change how edX outputs data from NumPy arrays to Xarray data sets. We didn't quite finish this just due to time constraints, but made some good progress on this. And I got what I had started on sent over to them so they can continue the work over the next few months. And then my last thing is I wanted to do a little more development type stuff, and I wanted to contribute to MetPy. So we picked out a good beginner issue to work on, and I'm going to hopefully finish that up in the last week or so of the internship, so I can continue contributing to MetPy in the future. And that is most of my presentation. Thank you again for coming. This summer at Unidata has been awesome. I've learned a ton. I think I was able to accomplish my goals of expanding my knowledge in Python and helping or creating things to help others. And everyone here has just been very welcoming. I felt like a part of the Unidata family since the beginning, and it's just been a great experience to be here. You all are very wonderful people. And just wanted to give a big shout out to my mentors, Drew and Shay, for all your guidance throughout the summer. I appreciate you all greatly. And that is it. Sorry for the internet window at the end.
Does anyone here or online have questions for Erin? Looks like Mike.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Erin, great presentation. That was really fun to watch your path through the internship. And I really like that slide where you have all the different frames as a snake. That was clever. I like that. Really good illustration of your path. Question for you. So you had taken, your first Python class was your first exposure to Python, right?
Correct.
In hindsight, how do you feel that class went? Did it hit the mark? Did you have to relearn a lot of different things a different way later on?
It was interesting. I felt like I learned a lot during it, but then once I left, I was kind of like, okay, well, how do I apply any of this? We made word clouds and like a bar chart, like so like I learned a lot, but not a lot of real life applicable things. So then when I started doing more specific things like making plots for my meteorology classes, I think it made it easier to kind of Google and learn how to do those because I had a little bit of exposure, even if that exposure wasn't relevant to what I was trying to do.
Do you think, obviously an Intro to Python class can't really be Met specific, but do you think, is there anything that you wish had been in that foundational introduction that wasn't?
Definitely all the environment management and things like that. I personally have destroyed my environment or my whole Python environment several times, and my classmates have had a similar experience. So myself and everyone really wish we knew how to deal with an environment without destroying one first.
Interesting. Well, that's really awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, let's give Erin one more round of applause, and then we'll move on.